braving the roads to come out and talk about gardening. For this thing on our minds, but really excited to get going. So I started the Utah Seed Exchange. I wanted to start a community that would work together to find the best and the strongest varieties that would grow well here in Utah. And like Derek said, I wanted to make sure that we all had the opportunity to have seeds without any cost to any of us. And that means that, also that means we're always going to eat. I think that's important to most of us. It's important to me. So the Utah Seed Exchange, what we do is we provide education to our members and events like this one to help support this cause and this purpose. This is something that really could happen very quickly. Like Derek says, everybody, if everybody even just saved one variety, one that they felt that they could do, maybe an easier one, those who experienced maybe a harder one, and together we get together and we have everything that, we have all the varieties that we need, and one person doing that alone, that can take a really long time, and it's really difficult. So this is going to be a little bit of a review for some of you, but I'd like to talk about why heirloom, why we want to save heirloom seeds. Okay, there's two kinds of seeds. There's heirloom and there's hybrid. An heirloom seed is one that if you plant it and it doesn't become crossed with anything else, and you save the seed from that plant and you plant it again, you're going to get the same plant as its parent. A hybrid seed has been crossed, varieties have been crossed, and if you were to plant the seed, and let's say it's not a sterilized seed, and you were to plant the seed from that hybrid, you don't know what you're going to get. You're going to get something different from either parent. Okay? So you can see how that's not sustainable with a hybrid seed. If you want that variety, you have to always go back to the seed company that's combining those and providing that hybrid seed. So there's a dependency there that you don't have with the heirloom seeds. Why? And so it's the only kind of seed you can save. So why save seeds? We're losing the varieties of our produce. 98% of all varieties have been lost from what was in seed catalogs in 1910. So that's what we have left, and we're continuing to lose those. If they're not planted and they're not saved, we lose them. Unfortunately, with us here in Utah, most of the cold weather varieties or the winter varieties that just grow right through the cold winter weather have been lost. And so we need to definitely, we're searching vigorously for those that still remain, and we want to definitely save those. We don't want to lose those. Seed companies are able to copyright their seeds, which means that's one way that you're not able to, even if it was an heirloom seed, you might not be able to legally replant that seed. They are also sterilizing the seeds, so they have a built-in sterilization so that if you were to take the produce from the seed that you planted, it just wouldn't germinate, it wouldn't even grow. And then of course they are genetically modifying seeds as well along with that. So if you like to eat genetically modified stuff, then I can tell you where to get that. Go get that. So how to save seeds. So vegetables have families, just like people. And within their families, they can cross and create new genetic codes, but natural ones, within their varieties. So, but they will not cross with varieties that are not in their family. So it's important, if you're going to save seed, to know the families, because if you've got, if you want to make it easy on yourself in saving seeds, in isolating your plants, then you would only grow one variety from each family. And I'm trying to have the self-control to do that. That is really, really hard. I see a seed catalog and it's like Christmas and I want to plant everything and I want to have a little bit of everything. So I'm trying to learn some self-control and just doing one from each. And this really helps. If you're all participating, then that really helps because I can at least feel like there's some seeds out there of other varieties that I don't have to plant that I can still have access to when I want to plant that variety. So plants, the blossoms and flowers of plants get pollinated and then the produce grows, right? So there's different ways of pollination. you have the really nice, easy ones to save, which are self-pollinated. And what that means is that the pollination, they have all parts within the flower that they need to pollinate, and it happens before the flower even opens. So there's very little crossing that happens in those. So if you're a beginner to this, these are the ones that you want to start with. Those include tomatoes, peas, and beans. So those are really easy ones. So if you're just beginning, that's where you want to start, something nice and easy. Now there's two kinds of tomatoes. There's tomato leaf or regular leaf tomatoes and potato leaf tomatoes. The tomato leaf or regular leaf are the ones that do not cross and self-pollinating. The potato leaf, only 20% of varieties are potato leaf. Because we love you, all of the tomatoes that we have for you and that we have tonight are regular leaf tomatoes. So those you just don't have to do anything with. You just take and you save those seeds. Then you've got a couple that are easy because you actually grow them by cloning them, and those would be potatoes and garlic. So those do go to seed, but because you can actually take the potatoes and sprout it, and it will grow a clone of itself, and you can take the clove of the garlic and you can plant it, it'll grow a clone of itself. There's no reason to bother with the seeds on those. So those are really easy to save as well. Then you have your insect, you have things that are insect pollinated, such as your squash. So I know this is hard. Squashes, melons, cucumbers, we like to plant lots of different ones, right? So this is where I'm trying to get into my self-control. But if you do that, that's fine if you're going to be hand pollinating, and you can do some hand pollinating with some bagging around the flowers and whatnot. And this is, again, I need to emphasize with this, so this is the next step up, a little bit harder, something more to do. But you start with the easy, and then after you've done that, you're like, okay, so I'm going to try to squash this year. Okay, and that's where this book comes into play. Suzanne Ashworth's Seed to Seed is kind of the Bible of seed saving. You need to have this. And it's not something you read cover to cover. It's something where you go, okay, I'm going to save lettuce seed this year, and I apologize, I forgot lettuce. Lettuce is a really easy one to save seed from too. And there's very little crossing that happens with lettuce. Because I'm going to save, this is what I did last year, I'm going to save lettuce this year. So I looked up lettuce and just studied up on lettuce and what to do on lettuce. So that's where you go to. I would recommend reading that from cover to cover. So then you can move on to, so once you've got that mashed, now I'm ready for something a little bit harder, and maybe I'm going to do some hand pollinating and whatnot. So, and those with more experience, I know that there's some probably even in this group who have been doing this for years and can do some of the harder ones. A little bit harder is your cucumbers and melons. They're harder than squash, hand pollinating, because you can't tell the difference between the male and the female blossoms. Squash you can. The female has the fruit on it, or the produce on it already. So what you have to do is you have to do enough of a sampling to hope and hand pollinate that you hope you got some males and females together. So again, that's a step up. It's just a little bit harder and something to try after you've mashed it before. And then you have root vegetables. Root vegetables like your carrots and onions, those kind of things. They actually produce seed in their second year, not the first. So you you harvest all of your onions. You find your very best ones, you put them aside, and don't eat those. And then the next year, you replant those. Some of you may have planted an onion before, and you see that a plant comes out of it. You're probably like, wow, I got a new onion. Well, you didn't really get a new onion, but what you've got is you've got a second year onion that's going to produce seed. So you let that plant grow, it produces seed, and you harvest the seed from that onion. Okay? Really hard thing is to not eat your best stuff. But that's the stuff that you want to save and get your seeds from. Again, this is actually a plant or a seed breeding program that we're doing. Okay, just like you would do with animals, you want to keep the best traits, you want to eliminate the worst traits. You want the very best. Along with that goes the first fruits. When you're saving seed, you want to save from the first fruits. Those are the ones that germinated and grew the earliest and the fastest, and that's definitely a trait that you want to perpetuate. If you harvest from, like, you just can't wait. That first tomato comes out, it is so gorgeous, and you just have to eat that tomato, and I totally understand that need. But if you save the seed from that tomato, you're going to have early germination from those seeds. You're going to have the best traits. If you wait to the end of the season ones, guess when your seeds are going to germinate? Weeks and weeks and weeks after. Okay? They're supposed to. So you've got to make sure that you're programmed, that you're getting the very best to save each year. So that kind of comes down to my seed saving method, or my sprouting and planting method that I actually have come up with that works with this philosophy. So what I do is I start my seeds in a sprouter. This is my favorite sprouter. I borrowed sprouters from all my friends last year, and I had them all lined up on my countertop, and I tried them all. And this one's my favorite for this. The biggest reason is, well, it's simplicity, and I like having lots of trays. You've got to keep your varieties separated. But also, there's not too many holes, and they're very small. Some of the ones with lots of holes for drainage, the roots all grow down the holes, and you have to pry them out, and you damage the roots. So, anyway, for lots of reasons, I really like this sprouter. So what I do is I will put my seeds by variety, and I've got them labeled into my sprouter, and then I just sprout them. So there's a couple different ways you can do it, and I've got a handout here with kind of details. You should have, it was on the table to kind of details this out. But I water them once a day, and I keep the top kind of like that. So it's getting some air, but it's still kind of retaining some moisture. If you're going to keep the top off and give it a lot of air, you're going to have to water it twice a day because they'll dry out, particularly the top ones. So I do it once a day, and I use hot tap water. So I just turn it all the way to the hot. When it's running hot, like I would do the dishes, that's when I go ahead and rinse through, and I don't soak them. I just let the water rinse through, get them wet, get them warm, and they're going to start to sprout.
Question.
Yeah.
Can it be too hot? If you have too hot of water?
Mine has never been set too hot, and Caleb does this with his starts, and he has never had a problem.
You're not going to cook them with oil or?
If you were going to burn your hand, you wouldn't have had it that hot. Anyway, I haven't had a problem with hot. So if it's if you can still put your hand in it.
So it's not like full hot. It's just as hot as your hand can handle.
Yeah, which for a woman who does dishes is it's pretty hot. And my plants can hack it. They're good. So.
Hey, question. How about soft water? Does that impact?
I've used all kinds, and I haven't had any differences in that. Yeah. So you just put it on your countertop. You don't want to put it in the sun. You don't want it in darkness. Just put it somewhere, normal in your house. I put it on my kitchen countertop. These were put out 10 days ago, and I actually have some pictures that I took 2 days ago. So this has been 8 days on my sprouts. These are bell peppers. Nothing. And even today, nothing on any of my peppers. And my mom has been sprouting hers too, nothing on the peppers. So those take a little bit longer. So you can see there's just nothing happening there on the peppers. Okay, so these are actually onions. You see the black onion seeds. So after 8 days, now interesting what you see quite a few haven't sprouted at all. Now you can't see this underground when you plant in the dirt. You see some of them have not even sprouted. Some of them are nice and long, and some of them, it's a little hard to see, but some of them, that one there just has a little tail. It's just barely sprouted. So this is important because I want the ones that are sprouting first and that are the strongest. Okay, so you can kind of get an idea of the variety of what you're going to see. Okay, so on the next one, I believe I've got a tomato. Yep, that is a tomato. And the sprouts are just about so long on these. And it's hard to see there, but I probably got about 60% germination on that one so far. Now I've even had it where if I just keep them in the sprouter, I will have planted some. They've been huge, and I planted them, and I still get some starting to germinate. Okay, now if you're just planting into the ground and they come up late, you're not going to likely pull those up. But it's really hard to know which ones you're going to save without kind of creating this elimination right up front. So I'll sprout these for quite a while. And then when they're strong enough, and now it's kind of hard for me to tell you when that is because every variety is going to be a little bit different, but usually about 4 inches. With a tomato plant, both leaves are out, nice and strong. You can see a nice strong root on it. I mean, they'll just hang out in the sprouter. Don't let them mildew, don't let them stay too wet. They'll get too dry, but they'll hang out in your sprouter for quite a while. So when they're strong enough, then what I do is I put them in paper pots. The reason why I do a paper pot is because and by the way, don't touch your sprouts. Don't play with them or spread them out. We don't want to touch our plants very much. We don't want to manipulate them or manhandle them. So I do them in a paper pot because I can plant them into the ground in that paper pot. So I'm really only touching them once to get them into this paper pot. Okay? So that once they're nice and strong, I'm just kind of putting that right into the ground. I'm not touching it or really messing with it. So here's how I do this. And I've got lots of newspaper for you guys if you need some. So you have your folded edge of the newspaper and any kind of cylinder-shaped vase or glass. This would happen to be from the old spaghetti factory. And you want to, here's the close end over here. You want to put the folded edge about 1 inch or more below. You're going to have some room to try and pull this out. So you want to give yourself a little bit of room. And you want the excess down at the open end. Okay? So then you just roll. And you guys can try this if you want to after. Got this and I got the paper. Okay, just roll it up. Take the excess, twist it up, shove it down in there. That will also help dislodge it from the glass a little bit. Get that off. And voila, hot. So I like mine to be decently tall. Again, I'm looking for long root growth. So I might even, get some longer or try and make this a little bit longer. Because those roots are just going to go straight down. Now, eventually they're going to start growing out of the pot too, and that's just fine. That doesn't matter. So you just take that and you fill it with potting soil. We've got some good potting soil here for you. And you get your sprout in there. Now I did plant one today for you. I don't know if it's going to make it. It's a baby onion. In here, hopefully it'll make it. I don't know if you can see here. But by the way, I need to emphasize, make sure you're labeling and keeping your varieties separate. If you end up with a seed at the end, you save a seed, you go, oh, I don't know what this is. You can't share it. Don't share it with me, please. Don't share it. We have to know what everything is. We have to keep track. So it's labeled on here. When I plant it here, I get these at the dollar store, and I can erase them and reuse them. Just stick that right in there. So that's my Stuttgarter onion. And it was about so big when I put it in today. So far it's doing well. Okay, so then I put them in these plastic containers. Now most of the ones that I have are a little bit lower. I get them at the dollar store and that's just fine too. The reason why is because I want to water from the bottom. Always. Again, my whole purpose in this is to have strong, healthy plants and to find the ones that are the very best. So what that does, put that in there, that way I can just water it right down into the tray. And the paper, as you can see, soaks up all that water and kind of keeps the moisture in the soil. Now the first time when I planted this today, I did do some top watering because the root's really short on it. If I had a long root that went already down to here, I wouldn't need to do that. You can just water from the bottom. But it holds that, and what that is too is it avoids, you know how sometimes you'll get that fungus on the top of the plant, on the top of the dirt, because the moisture is kind of staying there. You'll never see that if you bottom water, and then your roots will go down towards the source of the water. Nice, strong roots. So when you're ready to plant, and now you put this in the sun or in light. It needs light and warmth now. So I have south-facing windows, a couple I built some shelves into. That's my greenhouse. So I'll put these up in there, and they'll start getting some sun, and they'll grow. And when they're, nice and big and strong, and again, now I'm going to eliminate. I'm only going to pick my very best ones. I only plant my very best. And then even then, some of them don't do as well in the paper pots. So, and I just compost. Sprouts I'll eat or compost the ones I don't use. Here I'll compost. And so these will grow. I will take the very best ones, and you can plant this right into the ground. One thing you need to be aware of, you can't have the newspaper sticking up above the soil level. So I just tear that top bit off and get the soil at this level to the soil that I'm planting into.
Do you water that with warm or hot water or cold water?
Lukewarm. I don't want to shock them, so I don't use cold, especially when we're starting early. And
Good.
we can get a little bit cold.
If you wouldn't mind repeating the question when they ask.
Sorry, the question was what temperature water would I water with? That's your question. So I don't want hot or cold at this point, just kind of lukewarm water. And let that soak up. So then you plant it, and then your first fruits, you mark them. I use some gardening tape to mark those. Say don't eat those. Those are for seed. And again, I mean, how many seeds are you going to get out of one tomato? An enormous amount just out of one tomato. So the saving part is not huge. It's just important that it's done correctly. Okay? So at that point then, I mean, all of this, the whole purpose of this is to weed out. Now, I do not baby these plants until it comes to the hardening off before I plant them. I don't want to baby them too much. Again, I'm looking to see which ones are tough. So I water them enough. I don't underwater or overwater them. I make sure that they're in some light and some warmth, but beyond that, I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to see what they're going to do. But just a second on hardening off. Hardening off is acclimating your plants to the climate in which they're going to be planted. So whatever that's going to be, if you're going to put them in a hoop house, or you're going to put them right out, wherever it is you're going to plant them, that's where you want to put them when you harden them off. So I would take, that's why I like the trays too, I can take my whole tray out and put them, I've got some shelves outside, and I'll put them out there. The first day, you want to start with the daytime, not the more extreme temperatures. I'll put them out for an hour, and I'll bring them in, and I'll kind of check them out and make sure they're doing okay. And then I'll do 2 hours. And maybe it's going really well and the weather's pretty good, so then the next day I'll do 4 hours. Bring them back in. And after I've got them acclimated to a day, then I'll start on the night and get them out just a little bit and get them acclimated to the colder time at night. Until you can get them out, that's the time that's a little more work you've got. But if you shock them and you put them out, you'll either completely stump them or you'll just kill them. You have to harden them off. Okay, because they're used to being all toasty in your house. And they're not happy with you if you just throw them out there. So once you've got them hardened off and acclimated, then you can plant them and they should do wonderfully. Make sure that where you plant them, it's loose and a decent radius around your roots. They'll get through some tough stuff after a while, but at the beginning, give them some loose dirt to get through until they're used to where they're at. So that's what I've got for you. I will be around after the exchange. I've probably created more questions than I've answered, but feel free to